Okay, let's talk about a word that makes a lot of business owners, well, a little nervous: compliance. It can feel like this huge, heavy burden, right? But what if we looked at it differently? What if compliance wasn't just about ticking boxes, but was actually this secret system that lets you grow your business without everything falling apart? Let's dive in and figure out how to get from total chaos to being in complete control. There's a tough truth out there. When a company is doing great and starts to scale up, a hidden danger sneaks in. And it's not a lack of sales, it's not a bad product. Nope. It's something way more subtle, and honestly, it's way more preventable. And there it is. This is the absolute core of the issue. It's not about the money you have to pay, it's the failure of the system to manage it. See, a missed deadline, that's just a symptom of a much bigger problem, a problem that can literally bring a booming business to a grinding halt. Does this scene look a little too familiar? That feeling of just being buried under a mountain of paperwork with deadlines flying at you from every direction? That, my friends, is compliance chaos. And it's a huge red flag that the old informal ways that worked when you were small are now becoming a serious, serious risk. So, how does this even happen? Well, as a company grows, it can accidentally create something I call an accountability vacuum. It's that murky space where nobody is quite sure who is responsible for what, and the simple things you used to track in your head suddenly become dangerously unclear. And you can see how it just snowballs, right? All of a sudden, the volume of transactions just explodes. Maybe you're operating in different states now, and they all have their own rule books. Your payroll gets more and more complicated with every new hire. Even your network of vendors has its own set of compliance needs. The old way of doing things just can't keep up. And here it is, side by side. The contrast is just so stark. On the left, you've got the vacuum. Everything's in someone's head. There's no clear owner, no backup, no visibility. I mean, it's a total recipe for disaster. But on the right, that's the goal. A disciplined system. Centralized, clear ownership, reviews, and a dashboard so leadership actually knows what's going on. So how do we build that system on the right? We need to create a real compliance control system. This is all about building a framework that gives you discipline, sure, but it also gives you credibility with investors, with regulators, and even with your own team. Now, the absolute heart of this system is the compliance calendar. And let's be super clear about this. This is not just a to-do list or a few reminders in your Outlook. It's a complete control framework that maps out every single one of your company's legal and statutory obligations. This framework really stands on 4 essential pillars. You need crystal clear due dates. You need one person, a designated owner, who is responsible for each task. You need an independent reviewer to double-check things. And you absolutely need a clear escalation plan for when things inevitably go sideways. Okay, a framework sounds great, but how do you actually make it work in the real world? The key is to break it all down into a predictable, manageable pace. You have to create a rhythm of compliance. It all starts with your monthly tasks. These are the high-frequency things like sales tax filings. You'll often hear them called GSTR1 and GSTR3B, withholding tax deposits, and all your employment-related payments like Provident Fund and ESI. If you miss just one of these, the problems can start to pile up fast. So being consistent here is everything. Next up, you've got your quarterly checkpoints. This is where you handle bigger things like your TDS or tax deducted at source returns and your advanced tax payments. But it's also a perfect chance to do internal reviews, like reconciling your GST, which makes your finances stronger and keeps you ready for any potential audit. Then we get to the big ones, the annual requirements. We're talking your main income tax return, your annual GST reconciliations, and all those company filings with the Registrar of Companies, or ROC, things like the AOC4 and MGT7. These carry huge financial and reputational risk, so planning backwards from these big deadlines is absolutely critical. And hey, this is a classic trap. It is so easy to forget all the smaller administrative renewals, things like trade licenses, shop registrations, or even the annual Know Your Customer submissions for directors. They seem minor, right? But if one of these lapses and you get a routine inspection, it can create a massive legal and financial headache. So after all that work, what's the real payoff? We're finally at the business case for all this discipline. And this is where we flip the script and turn compliance from a pain point into a powerful strategic advantage. This is the after picture. It's that feeling of being in control, of being on top of things. When you have a disciplined system, you're building a solid foundation, and that foundation is what lets you scale your business in a sustainable way because you're not constantly putting out fires.
So, what's the actual strategic value here? First, the obvious one. You completely eliminate all those stupid penalties and late fees. You also protect your directors from personal liability, which is huge. You build massive confidence with investors. A clean record is a giant green flag for them. Audits become a smooth, efficient process. And maybe most importantly, you're proving you have real operational maturity.
So here's the bottom line. The one thing to take away from all of this: institutionalize your compliance before you start to scale. Don't wait for the problems to show up. Build this infrastructure proactively. Make it part of your company's DNA right from the get-go. And that really brings us to the final question. And this one's for you to think about. Take a good, hard look at your own business, at your own systems. Are they just a bunch of reminders and crossed fingers? Or are they a true framework? Is your compliance system really built to scale with your ambition?